Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Afreen Huq, an Associate Professor in Entrepreneurship and Innovation in the School of Management, RMIT University in Australia. Afreen's research explores how gender identity and socio-cultural factors influence women's entrepreneurial behaviour and approach to growth. She studies this phenomenon on women entrepreneurs in both developed countries as well as in the culturally restrictive societies. Afreen is an old colleague of mine. I've known her for quite some time, and she is the real deal. She's a passionate educator of entrepreneurs, has been doing so for well over a decade now, and I had an absolute delight in having a conversation with Afreen, which started with the intention of talking about education, but moved quickly into the world that women face when they undertake the entrepreneurial endeavour. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Afreen Huq. So welcome, Afreen Huq.
Thank you, Peter.
We've tried to organise this a few times, so thank you for accommodating me. I really, really do appreciate it. We might just start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself. I've known you for quite a while. When I lectured, a sessional lecturer here, and I think you came in around the same time, late 2000s.
2000, yes.
Yeah.
Early 2000. Yeah.
Right. No. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Thanks, Peter, and thanks for this opportunity. I know we've been talking about it for a while, so today it's actually happening. Just to give you a background of where I started, I'm a skilled migrant to Australia. I came here in late 2006, and then 2007 I joined RMIT. So in terms of my career journey, I was already in the higher education sector, teaching in the largest public university and teaching entrepreneurship there. That was also because I had done my PhD in women's entrepreneurship. That was my core research area at that time. So when I joined RMIT, it was a good timing both for RMIT and myself, because I had just completed my PhD, went back to Bangladesh, where I came from, to Australia. And I was not only teaching entrepreneurship, but I was also very actively working with a lot of international donors in their funded projects for enterprise promotion in Bangladesh. So I had a lot of practical experience around entrepreneurship at that time. And RMIT, at the time that I joined, had a dedicated 3-year undergrad program on entrepreneurship. So like how RMIT College of Business now offers a Bachelor of Business degree that has a lot of options for majors and minors. Ours were quite unique because it was a standalone 3-year undergrad degree in entrepreneurship. So it was a very attractive proposition for me to join the program. And at that point in time, RMIT was also very keen on revitalizing the program as a whole. So they were recruiting quite aggressively. So I, along with a couple of other colleagues that you would know very well, had joined at that time. And we were literally given the responsibility and also kind of the agency to design the program as we thought should look like at that point in time. So that's how my journey of becoming an educator in entrepreneurship in Australia started.
That's very interesting. And, you know, we just went through all these questions, and now you've touched on something that I've been doing some work in around entrepreneurship in developing economies in the South Pacific and also women in entrepreneurship. So I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about what you saw in your studies. So when you did your thesis, so it was your PhD thesis, so what was the kind of the top level kind of findings that you found there? Were you focused on women in entrepreneurship in a developed economy or developing economies? What was the focus there?
My study was funded with Commonwealth Scholarship. So one of the conditions of the Commonwealth Scholarship is that the recipients will have their research topic based on the economic relevance for the country that they come from.
Right.
So it was kind of a mandate of the funding to have a research topic that would have real economic implications and
so for
policy,
Bangladesh in this case.
Policy implications. So because I was from Bangladesh and I was very interested in studying women entrepreneurs, because that was just a really emerging phenomena at that time. I'm talking about early 90s to mid 90s, which is when I did my research. And that was a time when there was a kind of a new awakening within entrepreneurship scholarship about really recognizing gender as a really influencing factor about how an individual would undertake and approach entrepreneurship. And the scholars at that time were all debating about the necessity of using the gender lens, because the standards of entrepreneurship, the frameworks within which entrepreneurship was understood, were all predominantly masculine.
Yep.
And women entrepreneurship wasn't fitting into that.
Right.
So which is why there was a big push, a very keen interest within the entrepreneurship scholarly community to study, and I kind of picked up on that because I was equally keen as a novice researcher at that time to pick that up as a topic. So obviously my target group was women entrepreneurs in Bangladesh, but where my study differed from how entrepreneurship was studied in Bangladesh at that time is I actually wanted to study the urban, metropolitan-based, more educated women who, in theory, would have better social and economic support to embark on entrepreneurship, as opposed to uneducated, rural-based women who will struggle to have the skills and the support to do that. So I was interested in looking at women who would have the capacity to choose any economic option, really, because of their background and their location and their level of education. But what would actually trigger them to embark on entrepreneurship in a developing country context, more so in a patriarchal society context.
Okay. This is a really, really interesting topic. I'm going to dig into this a little bit, because I have this conversation with my partner about the gender differences, and one of the explanations that I use is this old story about the two young fish swimming through the water, and there's an old fish coming their way, and the old fish says, "G'day fellas, how's the water today?" And the two look at each other and say, "What's water?" Right? Because they're in the water, right? They're in the system. And I think for males, adult males particularly, we look at life through that water that we're engulfed in, and we're completely oblivious to some of the challenges. So, and in fact, I would say some people would argue that they exist, which is maybe what was happening with some of your colleagues. So what is the difference? And I'll lead with my chin a little bit here, because, and please slap me down here. I found that, I guess, the chutzpah or the you can call it courage, but maybe just, the strong ego that some male entrepreneurs have to go out and talk about the sizzle, right? Talk about what they're doing, and they're not afraid to get shut down. They just pick themselves up and keep going. Whereas, the suggestion is that females, as a general statement, of course, I mean, people are different, don't like no, right? Is that right, or is that wrong, or is that, kind of not even relevant? What did you see?
I would say that in the context of patriarchal society in particular, the gender construction of roles has a very important role in how, has a very important influence actually on how women perceive the feasibility, the acceptability of businesses, right? And which is why their approach to undertaking entrepreneurship has to be different. For example, you'll find that more women, if you ask women entrepreneurs, you'll find that more women entrepreneurs start business because they want to have a balance or a family balance, right? So they want to have the flexibility to actually combine gainful employment with family responsibilities, which is not necessarily the case for male entrepreneurs, right? In terms of, if I understood your question correctly, in terms of how women entrepreneurs approach business, there is difference about the way how they promote themselves as an entrepreneur. Increasingly through my research, I'm finding that very successful women entrepreneurs who are even running fast growth businesses, even in the context of Australia, which is not a patriarchal society, you will find that a lot of women...
Some would argue with that.
Yeah, some would, yes, some would. Women entrepreneurs are more comfortable in projecting their femininity into their business practices.
And their agency, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a very interesting finding, because you would think that to be successful as an entrepreneur, because the standards have always been defined by masculine norms, women would like to emulate that, right? And there has been some women who have done that, but the way gender is now projected and evident in how businesses are run by women, it's pleasing to see evidence of more, I guess, the female aspect, the female characteristics, or the feminine characteristics being projected about how you are presenting yourself as an entrepreneur and how you're selling your business as a business that is owned and managed by a woman. So that's very interesting. And I think it's quite encouraging, because there cannot be just one way of becoming successful, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I tend to wonder whether it's got something to do with how we're brought up. So, little boys can go and get dirty and roll around and take risks and fall out of trees. This is an old stereotype, of course. And whereas, the girls can sew and they can, pick flowers, and it's a softly sort of world. Again, purely a stereotype, and certainly not the case these days as a general sort of statement. Is that part of it, how we're conditioning young women, or how we're raising girls to be able to deal with the risks and the uncertainty associated with entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think to a large extent it's the norms and the values that surround you when you grow up, right? As a human being has a lot to do with how women internalize these values and then display them in their actions and their behavior, and even in their cognition. That's very, very obvious. So yes, I think in terms of how the society and globally how we are evolving, definitely has an influence and an impact on how women are approaching entrepreneurship. But there are some stereotypes that I think still exists. It still exists. In developing countries and in a lot of patriarchal societies, I think women themselves are also very comfortable in the way how their role has been socially constructed. So a lot of women are not apologetic about really prioritizing their role as a wife and a mother.
Right.
And then they craft the business, they design their growth aspirations around the business in tandem with who they are,
right?
Primarily,
okay. Right. So it's not to offend the for example, the husband. I'll give you a quick example. So my mum was the entrepreneur in the family. So dad had a normal job. She started a clothing manufacturing business back in the 80s here. So 2 of them, in fact, and ended up hiring, I think, 30 or 40 staff, and was quite successful. Dad had a big problem with it because suddenly the focus and the agency and the power was with Mum, who was earning all the money, or not all the money, but she was certainly earning 80% of the money. And he was kind of sidelined. And, I imagine that scenario for me. And if that was my partner, I'd be punching the sky going, this is awesome. How can I help?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Whereas Dad took it very much as an affront to his role in the family. So this is the fish in the water, right?
Yeah.
So
that's very much the case. And, in terms of you talking about breaking those status quo, I think that's something that's happening. Women are increasingly finding entrepreneurship as a pathway for them to gain those agency and becoming more economically and financially active in the family, and therefore having the agency and the empowerment to make decisions and influence decisions in the family. And yes, it is quite challenging for men in societies like that. And I shouldn't actually just make these comments in terms of patriarchal society. Just now you said, you would debate whether Australia is a patriarchal society or not. I think it's a common phenomenon worldwide about someone who has kind of not really worked and been a mother and primarily the homemaker, decides to then start an entrepreneurial initiative. And once it leads to economic returns, more, I guess, better sense of identity and agency that comes with it. It kind of throws the status quo of the family out of balance, right?
Well, if the research, as I understand it, is right, generally women want to marry up in terms of the ability to generate money and to protect the family, and I guess that would throw that I guess hard wiring.
But what's interesting is that there is an increase, particularly in developing countries and emerging economies. When women actually start bringing money, there is a lot of resistance and even active negativity towards allowing women to venture out and start a business. It doesn't matter whether you are starting it from home, at home, or you're doing it outside. There is a lot of resistance because the fear of the unknown, in terms of, what's going to happen? Am I going to get fresh hot meal at the end of the day if she's working outside?
You poor thing, you'll have to cook yourself.
Exactly. So I think that those mindsets will always be there. But what's very visible now is that once, regardless of the societal context that we are talking about, once women start bringing money into the house, it is always spent for the well-being of the family. It goes into children's education, better nutritious food, more longer-term savings and investments, and so forth. And soon enough, you'll see that there is a lot of buy-in. So these women, even though they start operating in a constrained environment, they start moving very fast from bounded agency to actually being really empowered.
Right. Can I ask, and if you could kind of comment, I guess turn your head to our society. So you've talked a lot about, I guess, women entrepreneurs who are married, who are in a family type situation. They've got children, they've got a husband. In Australia, there are a lot of women who choose not to have children, who go out and earn their own money as lawyers, as doctors, as whatever, and have agency simply because, we've enabled that, or we've had, I guess, some foresight as a community to start to, bring that balance between the two genders. How does that apply, do you think, for female entrepreneurs in a country like Australia, Western society, developed economy, facing the society? So I guess probably not the opprobrium associated with society saying, oh, she's going to be an entrepreneur, she thinks she's better than everyone else, but rather I'll call it the games we play, or the way we do business, particularly blokes. They'll go to the footy together, they will go to the bar together, they will, they'll go to the Australia Club, or whatever it is. Can you sort of make some comments around what that looks like for the journey of a female entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't know about the population in its entirety, but in terms of my exposure to the women entrepreneurs through my research, I have followed women that are in fast growth businesses, meaning that they have grown at least 30% above their contemporary enterprises or firms within the industry. And it's interesting you asked me that question. I did mention to you earlier that many of these women have consciously projected femininity into their business practices. So when it comes to men taking their clients to footy games or sports events and all that, these women do things that are feminine. So they will they'll take their clients to, what do you call it, for us, to spa.
Oh, okay.
Right? They will have a barbecue.
Right.
They will have just a nice lunch, an outing. So it's different about how they relate to their clients. And they're not necessarily following what a male entrepreneur would do. And it's good to see that it works as a business strategy. They're clearly very well thought out strategies that are different from their male counterparts, but that is contributing just as positively to their business growth and performance.
Right. And are you continuing this research, or is that all done?
I am continuing on this research, but I have also sort of taken my learnings of what I've seen within women entrepreneurs in Australia in the context of fast growth businesses to the context of refugees and migrants now.
Right.
So I'm now studying women entrepreneurs who come from refugee and migrant backgrounds and how they are using entrepreneurship as a platform to reconstitute their identity in this host country.
It's amazing how this topic keeps popping up. I think this is the 11th or 12th podcast that I've done, and I would say at least 4 of them this has come up with, but particularly out of Vanuatu, because I was in Vanuatu for a couple of trips, and this is, I made the observation, rightly or wrongly, that we tend in the West to look at, the entrepreneurs are going to create a unicorn, billion-dollar company, and you're going to be on the ASX, and they're a tech giant or whatever it is. But the reality is that a fisherman in a village that decides to do something entrepreneurial by buying a second boat, lending some money, and then hiring someone, that's just as entrepreneurial, right?
It is.
But and it may not even necessarily be about survival, but about the betterment of their situation. So I guess it's what your baseline start is.
Yeah.
And I would say the same thing would apply, for female entrepreneurs in developing economies and in a developed economy. So that's very interesting. That's amazing that you're doing that work. I think that's probably more interesting than the educational side of things. But
no, I'm really loving it, and it's the thing that refugees and migrants in any host society struggle the most with is to find an identity. And it's really interesting to see how entrepreneurship can actually offer a meaningful platform for their self-expression, for their inclusion, and to have that sense of identity. So it's it's been an amazing journey through my research in that area, and I'm kind of trying to extend that to also understand, because these are in entrepreneurship research jargons, we would call these people as socially outsiders.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
So one of the other community that I'm really interested to study how entrepreneurship can also make a difference in their choice of meaningful work and life is the LGBTQ community, because there is an uptake of entrepreneurship within this community as a pathway to find more meaningful, satisfying work, and also find a way of social inclusion. So it's been a very interesting journey for me in Australia in terms of how I'm kind of delving into new avenues of using the same framework of research as entrepreneurship as a platform to address the needs of different communities and identify different ways of how they're using this as a platform.
Sure.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by Christo Partners, strategic advisors to assist you in commercialising your innovations. If you have an opportunity you seek to bring to market and need help with either going to market, connecting with universities to access technology, or raising capital or any other matter, contact us on hello@christopartners.com. I guess, my insights over the journey and, gender aside, has been, every time I did something unconventional, challenge the status quo, when not only from a cultural perspective, from a societal perspective, and from a professional perspective, there were two things going on. Number one, I was celebrated for the achievements, totally vilified for the things that didn't work. And when things did work, they were the old adage, success has many fathers and failure is an orphan, right? So suddenly everybody was involved in that, and everybody. So it really wasn't me. Yeah. So it's funny how you have a corporation around you, and if you're being entrepreneurial, say entrepreneurship, so within an organisation, you're dealing with some forces outside the organisation. Well, now you've got capital requirements and cash flow requirements. The family or your partner who is challenged by the risk appetite that you've got, and the trust that he or she has for you to be able to manage that risk. So, but it's also interesting. I think it's very interesting that you talk about identity, because, believe it or not, I was thinking about this last night. The ups and the downs and the challenges associated with an entrepreneurial journey force you to face your demons, force you to ask, who am I? Like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I putting myself through the meat grinder like this? Is it that I want to stand on top of the mountain, put my hands on my hips and say, see, I'm a legend? Or is it there's a gravity to this where you are curious. By your very nature, you are curious, and you see patterns and you solve those patterns, and then you have enough commercial acumen, or you develop enough commercial acumen one way or the other to be able to prosecute those opportunities and create something for yourself rather than have a steady cash flow, a steady paycheck, or whatever it is. So maybe that's a good segue into how do you educate entrepreneurs?
Yeah,
because you've been doing it for a while now, right?
Yes, good question. We always have there's a myth, right, that entrepreneurs are born, and then we have a debate about, are they really born or can they be made?
Yep.
So where the paradigm that I come from, or the paradigm that we use in our teaching, is that yes, the skills, the aptitudes, the characteristics of entrepreneurs are not necessarily anything unique. Those are very much available in people who are successful generally. Yeah, a lot of these skills are very similar to how leaders operate. And some of them you may feel that you comes naturally to you, which is something that is inherent, but that doesn't mean that you cannot consciously work towards developing some of those skills and capabilities. And that's where entrepreneurship education comes from. It allows people to develop the confidence that certain skills and capabilities may be lacking in you, but that's not it. You can develop them, and over time you will get better at it.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. I used to start my lectures with something that I got from a lecturer that I'd had when I was going through my undergrad, and basically I would draw 4 circles in a square, and I'd say, I'm just going to quickly give you a 10-minute skill. I'm going to provide you a 10-minute skill or a framework that'll allow you to go out in the world and do whatever you want, whether it be a business, become an astronaut, become a musician, whatever you want. But if you want to stick around for the next 3 years and learn a couple of things, you might get rid of some of the pain points that are really unnecessary. Right? So I'll tell this story. I'll tell one other quick story. So the first one was, I would say, the first circle was willingness to act. And I think I did this in your class. So willingness to act will always give you an outcome, even if you do nothing. If you do nothing, that's an outcome, right? An outcome is going to give you information, and information is going to give you knowledge and wisdom, and knowledge and wisdom is going to give you confidence that takes you to another level of willingness to act. And I'd say to them, so if you want to go and learn the hard way, go for your life. Lots of people have done it, and if you want to do that, you should do it.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did was I'd get them to put their hands up and say, okay, for the first years. Some of them were mature age students, but the majority of them were first years. And I'd say, put your hand up if you're here to make money. Pretty well all the hands would go up. You'd wonder why somebody said they don't want to make money. Okay, so does everyone understand money? Yeah, okay. All right, well, does everyone understand I guess, compound interest? Because if you put your money in the bank and you get 5%, can you do a calculation for me? Because if you can do a calculation in terms of compound interest, when you can do a discount, you'll understand a discounted cash flow because it's a little bit, it's kind of the opposite of that, right? And so I'd pick, the person that's the most enthusiastic to get up and I say, come up, I have a spreadsheet open, I put $100 there, compound $100 for 10 years by 10 or 5% or whatever I put in. No one could ever do it. And I would say to them, you don't know the maths and you don't know how to use a spreadsheet. Well, there's one thing you better learn as a business person.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Yeah, so I couldn't agree with you more. I think that it's really, really important. There are a bunch of skills that you really, really need, that you can learn, how to negotiate, how to use a spreadsheet, how to read balance sheet, all that sort of stuff. So with your teaching, has that changed? Because we moved from the Bachelor of Entrepreneurship to a business entrepreneurship with a major in...
Yes. What happened in RMIT is the Bachelor of Business Entrepreneurship program has been restructured or reframed into a major.
Right.
So instead of 24 courses that we used to have before on a 3-year journey, students now do 8 courses as a major. And then there are options for them to also pick multiple minors. So we have, for example, a major in entrepreneurship that basically focuses on startup. We also are going to have another major that will look at innovation and strategy that will be mostly around corporate venturing, entrepreneurship.
Gotcha.
We have another minor on open innovation, so students can just do courses that gets them a better understanding of open innovation and how they can apply it to their context. We also have another minor on social impact, which is something that's very considered to be very important. It's part of the RMIT strategy now. All our research and our programs are expected to contribute towards a couple of sustainable development goals. So having social impact in whatever it is that you do is very important in how RMIT sees itself. So we do also have a minor for students to look at social enterprises, enterprises beyond profit, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So they get the foundation skills, accounting, marketing, yada, 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 legal, whatever. And then you start to, I guess, get them to work within the ecosystem of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. In the first year, they do the foundation courses, which is supposed to give them a good head start with the areas where they then seek to specialize on. So, and entrepreneurship is one of them. So
what's your experience been? Do you have many students come to you and say, "This isn't what I thought it was going to be. This is too hard work. I wanted to just create businesses and play billiards and drink beer."
It's interesting you asked that question, Peter. As academics in the entrepreneurship program, we all experience the same thing. We have a small cohort. It's not very big. But our cohort has got some interesting characteristics. We have some students who make an informed decision about specializing in entrepreneurship because they actually envision starting a business somewhere sometime soon after they graduate.
Right.
So these are students who are really interested in bringing their idea into reality, and they're very keen on learning the tools and the frameworks and all that to do that. But then we also have students who come into our program because they're interested about entrepreneurship, but not necessarily keen to ever own a venture of their own.
Right.
And those are the students who struggle more than the ones who are interested to start their own business. Yeah, because these are the students who struggle with their motivation when we actually push them towards really working on a feasible business idea, scaffolding it as much as possible to assess the viability of it, then really getting out there, developing a prototype, iterating it with research, constantly seeking feedback. That's when they start to struggle, because then they find it overwhelming because they don't really see them doing it. So what we do in order to keep them motivated is we try to then find relevance of these skills in the context of work.
Right.
We just say, look, you don't have to be an entrepreneur in order to practice what you're learning. You have to be an enterprising individual in whatever it is that you do.
Right. Yep.
And in being enterprising, in taking an initiative, in managing a project, in selling it to your seniors or executives who will fund your project, you will have to have a value proposition. You have to come up with a business case. So that's what we try to.
Well, it's about execution, right?
With, yes.
So everyone's enamored with the idea, and the idea is important. Absolutely right. The idea is important, but unless you can execute, and to execute, you need skills, and you need access to skills. You need your own skills, and you need to have a tenacious character. And to be tenacious, you need to give a shit about what you're doing. So if you don't. You could be a lawyer, and no disrespect to lawyers, and not really care about the case. You're just going to go through a process, and you'll win it, you'll lose it, and away you go. You can even be a heart surgeon. It's still you can care about what you're doing, but at the end of the day, there's a mechanical sort of process, or there's a systemized process to it. You don't need to be tenacious. You just need to be good at what you do.
Yeah. And just to have that confidence of being able to really transform an idea into reality is what we emphasize on in our program. And it's really pleasing to see that towards the end, our students actually graduate being a lot more confident to explore new ideas and to take it to a point that it can be either monetized, or it can lead to some social impact. And we've had some excellent examples of students, taking their ideas forward and making a difference, whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit venture, but actually making a difference.
Do they have any comeback success stories that you've celebrated?
We do. We have quite a few. We have quite a number of students who have done really well with for-profit commercial ventures, but then increasingly we are having students going to sort of the enterprises beyond profit area.
Right.
So we have a number of really good examples of students who have done that.
Yep.
Like Jared. I don't know whether you met him, Jared Biffa, who started the Kingfolk Cafe.
Yep. Yeah, he was one of my students.
Yeah, he's one of our really valued alumni in the program. We have, what's his name? Lyndon Galea, who started a project which the name doesn't come to me right now, but he actually won a couple of awards because he was the one who started providing free lunches to students who couldn't afford it.
Right.
And then, a few others that have gone into environmentally sustainable businesses and so forth. So we have every year we do have 2 to 3 really good examples of students who have taken it beyond the program and has actually.
So is there a way to connect some of these ventures now as they're bubbling up through the undergrad program? Is there a postgrad program?
We don't have a postgrad program. Many of our students in RMIT we have an activator.
Yep.
And quite a few of our students are actually connected with activators, so they then become part of the activator startup community. And we also have an entrepreneurship alumni.
Yep.
So we are in contact with a lot of our students, not all of them, but many of our students are still quite connected with us, and you invite them back as guest speakers.
Sure.
One of them is actually sitting in our school's industry advisory board at the moment. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. And do you connect them with seed capital through? I know RMIT is setting up or will set up.
It happens only when they become part of the startup activator community.
Okay.
They have 2 different programs. One of them is the Launch Hub program that Activator has.
Yep.
Actually has seed funding support embedded into it. So I think after the end of the 3-month program, they then pitch to investors, and they get about the funding. I think is around 25,000, which is not bad. So that's that's there. As part of the program, we don't have funding services available because it's still predominantly
it's an
academic program.
Is the program available? Because you've got a campus in Vietnam as well. And somewhere else?
We have RMIT Vietnam in Vietnam. So that's RMIT. It's not a partner institution. Yep. It's RMIT there. We partner with the Singapore Institute of Management in Singapore. We have also partnered with SUIB in Shanghai.
Okay.
So we have joint programs running there. So
and you teach the same program?
We don't have entrepreneurship everywhere though.
Right.
It's mostly management and international business that is taught together with their programs, and students, graduate with a dual endorsement from both RMIT and the partner institution. But we have entrepreneurship courses in Vietnam.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I actually lectured for RMIT in Hong Kong. But it was international business. It wasn't entrepreneurship per se. The students there treated me a lot better than the students here.
Oh, of course. Even I've had the pleasure of the experience of visiting. I think it was Hong Kong Institute of Management.
Yes.
I went there. I've been there twice as well. They're really good.
Yeah, fantastic. So tell us, so if somebody's listening and they're thinking about doing the undergrad program, what would you like to tell them?
Well, as I said, if they're curious, if they're interested to explore new ideas and then learn how to really convert it into reality, then the RMIT Entrepreneurship Program is the place to be.
Okay.
There is a lot of support. It's a very applied, hands-on program. We are very well connected with the entrepreneur ecosystem within Victoria, Startup Week and all that. So it's a relatively small cohort, which means that students get a lot of support and individual attention. As I said, I think because it's so applied and also has got great industry presence into the curriculum, it not only gives an opportunity for students to learn about, the foundations and the tools and the frameworks, but it gives them great opportunity for networking. So they actually graduate with not just a certificate, but of really valued social capital, so to speak.
Well, I remember when I did my master's in entrepreneurship and innovation, I didn't really care about the certificate because who cares? Hey, I'm an entrepreneur. Look, it's really clipping the skills on your tool belt and going off and doing it. Before we finish up, let me ask you a question that just occurred to me. So, do you have, or would you have, or do you think there would be value in having a unit specifically for women, female entrepreneurs, to walk them through some sort of education so they can understand the world that they're operating in and give them some skills that'll help them that may not be relevant. They may be relevant for males as well because we need to understand, what's going on, right, to support our colleagues and get the best people for the job, right?
It's interesting you asked me that question, Peter. What I experience in the classroom when I speak to the students about the difference, if any, between male and female entrepreneurs, and the findings when I discuss with them about, how research shows that women have a different context for going into entrepreneurship, and then even in their journey, they make decisions that are different. Their strategies of entrepreneurship is different. For example, their recruitment style will be different. Their relationship management with their clients will be different. The whole class just goes quiet. Right? Nobody expects to hear any difference between how male and female entrepreneurs in Australia operates. Or globally for that matter, right?
Yeah.
So every time I talk to the students about it and share the findings, it's the same reaction.
So it's like a gobsmacked silence.
Gobsmacked. And even women, female students come up to me and say, Afreen, that's very interesting. We never really thought about it that way.
Right.
So it would
fish in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
Fish in the water.
Yeah. So it would be good to, I think, not necessarily have a course per se, but just to have that theme, gender as a theme, as a cross-cutting theme within our courses, so that you can have a reasonable discussion around the topic, and then you contextualize it.
Yeah.
So what does it mean for,
Well, that's right. I think you've got to be, I was in the military, and we've got to be situationally aware. So situational awareness is really, really important when you're going into the unknown.
Yeah.
And because you're going to be dealing with a bunch of risks. Just as human beings, if we don't understand the situation as it relates to our specific point on the battlefield, and so you're putting yourself at unnecessary risks. So you're going to, as an entrepreneur, you're going to navigate your way through a series of hurdles and obstacles and things you're going to have to go around, under, through, whatever it is, and knowing what the best things that you can bring to the equation to think that through. And it's not physical, right? You've got to think through some problems.
So there's definitely merit in bringing more female entrepreneurial role models in the classrooms. That makes a big difference. And also, I guess, just sharing, keeping the students informed about what's the actual reality out there. I remember I interviewed this one of my informants from fast growth business, and one thing that she said, I said, what's your, what's the most fun part about, being an entrepreneur? And she said, I've really enjoyed watching my male counterparts underestimate me.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, that's what she said. So, I think it's always good to present that context, so that the women students, the female students in any entrepreneurship program for that matter, is actually aware of what the actual reality is. It's like funding is still a much bigger challenge for women entrepreneurs everywhere. Australia is no exception to that, right? How many of the female students in our program would actually have any awareness of that? Right? So it's just to prepare them better for the world of business out there. I think it's really good to have gender as a cross-cutting theme in whatever it is that you teach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a really excellent place to start. There was a bunch of other things I wanted to ask you, but I'm conscious of our time as well. I'll have to get you back on. Thank you so much for today.
It's an absolute pleasure talking to you, Peter.
And you, if anybody wants to get in touch or reach out or get some more information, where would you like them to go?
Regarding our program?
Yep.
Well, obviously we have Year 12 students coming into our programs through VTAC and Open Day. So Open Day is a very good event for people to come to RMIT and learn about our programs. And we also have, designated teams such as Info Corners or Business Central, where students can send their queries to, and then take it from there.
Right.
But Open Days are just a place to
best
be.
Way. And I presume that's just accessible through the website.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Peter.
And until we do it again.
Yes. Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Afreen Huq. Until next time, stay well and stay curious.